Hello everyone, welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. It's a very quiet week this week, not too much chat on Twitter or on Scout or anything like that. So we thought this is a good time to have a bit of reflection, look at the Premier League so far, what it's meant for our FPL teams, what we can do going forward, and yeah, do a few grades and see sort of what we can uncover. I've got some stats on some teams and some players and all of that. How are you, Gianni?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. Yeah, very pleased to be doing this video. I did this last year with Chris and maybe Flapjack, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and it was so much fun. So I love the fact we can obviously talk about teams and players, but FPL assets with them alongside it. And as you say, it's a really quiet week. Like Twitter seems really quiet, but I know the minute we get those doubles announced, it'll go from the quietest day to the busiest day, and we just don't know when that will be. So I'm ready and waiting.
It's surely coming soon. You know, we had they said something about the Champions League, didn't they, and the rearrangements around that. I just get the sense there's going to be an announcement soon, but yeah, we'll kind of see. Yeah, I thought you'd be a good one for this. I had my pick of everyone, and I put you first. So there you go. You're my number one target for this video.
Good to know. Good to know.
Yeah. I'll give you a grade at the end, see if it was worth it. So we've got 10 teams today. I can't spell, so instead of doing Leicester at the end, I've got Liverpool. I messed up the alphabet. So we'll do, if you're expecting to see Leicester, that'll be coming on tomorrow. We'll be doing the second part of this on tomorrow's video. So let's just get into it then. We're going to go alphabetically down the list. We're going to talk a bit about how the team have performed this season, the assets that we've got, and sort of if they exceed our expectations or not. Then I've got some stats on kind of each team. Kind of to go. Josh Tan asked where are the ranks. We don't need to do ranks at the moment. There's a game week in progress. It could be anything by the time this game week ends. Right, let's start with Arsenal. So Arsenal are the first team alphabetically. They are having a very good season. They are doing much better than I predicted in general at the start of the season. I thought they were going to struggle. I thought their signings were poor to average. Yeah. I was wrong. What have you made of them?
Been so impressed. Like Arteta has a clear identity, and not many managers come into jobs and within 6 months, you know, their style of play. And even when Arsenal weren't doing that well, we knew what Arteta was trying to do. And he's a little bit like a Pep 2.0. And, you know, fair play. If he's going to do anything like Pep has done, he's going to be an elite manager. The signings I'm with you as. I wasn't expecting much from like a Ramsdale, for example, and he surprised me. Tomiyasu, I knew was a good underrated player. There's hundreds of Tomiyasus in Serie A, by the way, that people don't know about. They come to the league and they're really good players. And he was a very good player already. But yeah, I like it. If Arsenal had an elite number 9 in this team at the moment, you look at it and go, they'd be not far off that top 3. But they don't have that final piece of the jigsaw. But no doubt they'll go and buy one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they started the season, losing to Brentford first game. Everyone kind of thought, oh, what's happening here? Then they lose to Chelsea. And then they lose 5-0 to Man City. And I was guilty of it. I wrote them off at that point. I said they're going to be, 8th to 10th, something like that this season. They're going to finish higher than that. They followed that up, win against Norwich, win against Burnley, games you'd expect them to win, and only 1-0, but still getting the points. And then they had that big result against Spurs, 3-1. And then, draws Brighton, draws to Palace, they beat Villa. They've been picking up sort of quite good wins. They've been losing the games that you kind of expect them to, which isn't too surprising with Arsenal, losing to Chelsea, City, United, Liverpool, all these teams. But against teams, that they're expected to do all right against, they've been doing well. And particularly recently, I mean, the amount of goals they've scored since Aubameyang has, been frozen out is really impressive. The positions I want to talk about, as well as Ramsdale, who I think has been sort of the best goalkeeper this season anyway, is the midfielders. Because, Arsenal midfield is absolutely stacked at the moment. There's almost too many options going around. Martinelli's come into it. He's got the best minutes per XGI of all the midfielders. You've got Saka in there as well, Smith Rowe, Odegaard. What are your thoughts on the midfield going forward? Are you looking to invest in it, or are you going to sort of stay away because there's so much option?
Yeah, the week you went Martinelli, I went Saka. Or within a couple of days of your Martinelli move, I went Saka. So we both kind of jumped on that Arsenal attacking bandwagon quite early, and we've both done very well out of it. But I look at it and just think the depth there is brilliant. Like, you've got 4 very good young attacking players for 3 spots. And at the moment, it's Smith Rowe that's missing out. But, that might change. But at the moment, the form is with the likes of Odegaard, Saka and Martinelli. And all 3 of them look like really good assets. They're also cheap as. Like, we are getting very attacking midfielders here for around the 6 million mark in all four of those players. That's crazy when you're looking at the numbers they're putting up. Like, you could go to Norwich or Burnley and spend similar on an attacking midfielder from their team. Well, what do they produce? So very, very impressed. This Arsenal team does look like there's goals in it. And that was my only reservation about Arteta. When he first joined, I thought they're a team that can keep some cleanos, but they don't look like they're ever going to score more than 1 or 2 goals. Well, now that's changed. And that's changed since Aubameyang has come out, since these young players have been getting minutes, and it looks really good.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very interesting looking at Martinelli compared to Smith Rowe, looking at these stats. So Martinelli's played 800 minutes, 817. Smith Rowe's played 1,261. So he's been frozen out, but he's played the majority of minutes going far this season. In the games Martinelli's played, he's had 21 shots in the box compared to 17 of Smith Rowe. He's had more touches in the penalty area, 50 to 35. He's created 16 chances to Smith Rowe's 20, and has a higher expected goal involvement. So if you're still holding on to Smith Rowe, I just think it's now reaching the point when the switch has got to be made. If you're going to be backing Arsenal, I think Martinelli, I wasn't too sure about it a few weeks ago. I had them both, and I was waiting to see kind of what to do with it. Yeah. But I think now you've got to move off Smith Rowe. He doesn't.
It's not sideways. It's not. Don't see it as sideways just because they're the same club. They are very different players putting up very different numbers, getting very different minutes at the moment. It ain't a sideways move. We often think that because it's same club. I see sideways moves as when it's like going from, I don't know, one centre back to another. I don't know, going from Laporte to Stones or whatever. Yeah. This isn't, because these guys are putting up very different numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at Saka's numbers. I mean, Saka's numbers are impressive. So for sort of $1 million more, you get someone who's created 32 chances to 16. This is compared to Martinelli, and Saka has played, almost double the minutes. So you've got to take that with a pinch of salt. But Saka is putting in consistently good numbers: 32 chances created, 34 shots inside the box, 98 touching the penalty to 50. So he's basically doubling what Martinelli's done in double the minutes, which still makes me think Martinelli is the best shout in this team.
For as long as he's getting starts, he arguably is. Given the choice, though, I still would go Saka over Martinelli but that's only because I'd be looking at this with a long-term view. I do feel like Martinelli, if he does have a couple of bad games, Smith Rowe will come in and play in that left-hand spot. But he doesn't look like he's going to have those bad games. So for the time being, he's nailed. But I just know Arteta's boy. If you had asked me at the start of the season, out of those 4, who's going to get the most minutes, I wouldn't have had to even think about it. I could have told you it was Saka. Like, he plays Saka day in, day out. Like, he is Arteta's go-to, and he only ever comes off when he needs to get rested. So the other day when they played twice in 3 days, I knew Saka was going to start the second game because he was hooked at 75 minutes. And I was like, he's being hooked because he's being rested. They were 2 or 3 goals up. He was getting his rest. Most of the other players, you go, will Smith Rowe come in this game because it's 2 games in 3 days? But you just knew Saka was guaranteed to start. So I like the peace of mind I get with Saka.
Yeah, I mean, from an FPL perspective, Saka's doing well. I think for 6'4", he's justifying the money. From a footballing perspective, though, he's such a talent, isn't he? He's an unbelievably brilliant player. I love watching him play. Every time I watch Arsenal play, I think he's the best player on the pitch. The work rate he's got, the energy, the technical ability, and the positional awareness. He's fantastic.
You saw him live, didn't you, a couple of months ago? And I remember you saying off the back of that, like, Arsenal were pretty bad. I think it was against Palace you went to, didn't you?
He went off at half time, and it was a different game. Yeah.
Yeah, so just he passes the eye test every time. Also, he's got a position now. Do you remember when he first came in? He was having to play left back to get in the team, and he was still getting loads of assists. Then he was sort of moved around the midfield, played on the left of a front 3, the right of a front 3, so he can cut in and shoot on that left foot. Maybe the assist threat drops a bit. I haven't looked at the numbers, but certainly the shot threat and the goal threat is increased by him playing on the right. And we like that. Cutting inside, shooting. 2 goals the other day in that one game. I can't remember who it was against. Very similar goals. Just cutting in, Iron Robben style, left foot goal.
I think that they're trying to take some of the onus off his defensive work to get him higher up the pitch, which is why we're seeing Lacazette dropping back. We're seeing this kind of stable midfield, Partey and Xhaka. There's not a huge amount of creativity in that, but it's just to let those front 3, the midfielders that we're looking at now, Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Odegaard and Saka, just do whatever they want and just drive the attacks, and look how many goals they've scored. It's an exciting time, I think, to be an Arsenal fan. They got lots of young players, and it seems to be like a clear plan and vision for what they're doing. Okay, so grade for Arsenal. I think we can take into account, where we kind of expect them to be, where they are now. The gradings from an FPL perspective, So yeah, go on, give us our first grade.
Are we going with plus and minuses, or are we just going simple letter?
Yeah, and give them a plus and minus. Why not?
I'm going to go. I'm actually going to go A minus. I think they're that good from an FPL perspective because we have got 3 very good midfield options at silly low money. And I also think because of Ramsdale, and even you look at the fullbacks, if the fixtures are right, an Arsenal triple up is not silly at the moment. So therefore, they've got to fit into that A category. So I'll go A minus because they haven't had the superstar, but A minus.
I think A minus is a good one. I think goalkeeper, you've got a set and forget there with Ramsdale. You've got Tierney and Tomiyasu, like you've mentioned. There's decent options in defence. The only problem with the midfield is, like we've talked about, there's too much option. So it almost makes Smith Rowe and Odegaard not really options because you're not really sure who's going to play. Even though Odegaard's got the role at the moment, there is that kind of chance that Smith Rowe comes in, and it means that Saka and Martinelli, I think, are the 2 standouts. I think Lacazette is an option as well, just given that we've got so few striker options. If the fixtures, when the fixtures turn for Arsenal, they've got a couple of blanks and a couple of tough games. But after that, we might see Lacazette sort of stay in people's thinking. So yeah, I'll go with you. I'll go with an A minus.
As if they do sign a number 9 and the number 9 gets into the starting 11, that could be a very attractive asset. Like they've been linked heavily with Ollie Watkins this January. If Watkins was to go, he'd be a really nice option. Playing in front of those 3, cheaper than Lacazette. One to keep an eye on.
I think it's interesting because I think Lacazette, the role he's got of being this, he's given the captain's armband for a few games. His link-up play is really impressive, much better than like Aubameyang's was.
Yeah.
Do they? I mean, they do need a number 9, obviously, but I don't know if they're going to go out and spend heavily on like a kind of a big star. Like Watkins is going to cost them what, 50 million, 55 million,
it's
probably something like that. I don't think they're going to pay that while they've got Lacazette and Martinelli. So they need to get someone in. But yeah, I wonder who they will get. Right, I think Nick Adams doesn't like the minus systems. I think it's fine. We're going to keep doing them. Right, we're going to move on to Aston Villa next. Obviously, big change for them. Grealish leaving, lots of players coming in. Buendia, Ings. Watkins had such a good season last year, and we were expecting him to kick on from that. Bailey came in, who's been disappointing because hasn't really had the minutes and had lots of injuries. They're doing all right. Change of managers, lots of change. What have you made of them so far?
I've been, from an FPL perspective, I have been disappointed because I thought we were going to be able to rely on the likes of Buendia. I hoped we'd be able to rely on Danny Ings, but as always, he's had his injuries. So there hasn't been a go-to Aston Villa asset this year. And perhaps in the summer, when we saw Buendia and Ings signing, we thought, okay, yeah, they've lost Jack Grealish. But there's 2 players here that have been proven FPL assets. Buendia's numbers at Norwich were ridiculously good, and Ings in the past has done it for us. Those 2 haven't turned up. I do think that there's some value in that back line. Like since Gerrard has been there, we've seen more clean sheets. Martinez was always going to be a little bit too expensive for us this season. If he'd come in at 5.0, he'd have had high ownership still, but at 5.5, it was just a little bit too far. But then the value in the defenders is perhaps there.
Just quickly with Martinez, is interesting because if Martinez had been 5.5 and getting the points that he got last season, I think a lot of people he could have made it. But it's amazing that drop off, and we've seen it before. We've seen goalkeepers who hit these heights, approaching 200 points. De Gea did it that season. Pope has done it. Heaton, these kind of guys, but it's rare for them to kind of carry it on. And Martinez was another example of that, which I think a lot of people correctly predicted.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. Like we look back, it was 3-4 years ago. We all had Pope. Nick Pope is a million miles from our team nowadays, and I know he's currently out injured. But yeah, it was one of those. It was just a little bit of a freak season, and maybe that'll be the case for Ramsdale next year. Ramsdale will be 5.5. We won't go there, and his numbers won't be as good. So Yeah.
I think you're always looking for these 4-5 keepers to emerge because if you get it right and you get a 4-5 keeper, you've got that locked in and the price just goes up and you haven't got to worry about it. And that's historically what happened. Martinez was 4-5, Pope was 4-5 at the time, and this year it's Ramsdale who's done that. I've got some stats because obviously we talk about Jack Grealish leaving with Villa and kind of the impact that has on Villa's attack. So this is their stats. This season. Apologies, this table is quite small. I think I've undersized quite a lot of these tables. You can see this season Villa are around about 11th place, and this is in terms of total attempts so far this season. So they're below, teams like Southampton, Brighton. They're ahead of teams like Newcastle, Brentford, but very much kind of mid-table. And this is after spending a lot of money on new, attacking, exciting signings. like you said, lots of injuries. It's been quite disjointed, new manager, all this kind of stuff. But it is a hell of a drop-off from last season. So this is last season at the same stage. They're actually 5th for total attempts. So, they're just behind the main guys. They're behind Liverpool, City, Chelsea, United, and then it's Villa.
Surprised at that.
Yeah, so it just shows, taking Grealish out of that side, I think, was such a huge thing, and everyone knew it was going to be. But I think, we're halfway through the season now, and I think it's just kind of proven that it was a big job to do that. And I think ultimately it's what's cost Dean Smith, because I don't think he's been able to unlock the talent around him in the same way that he did kind of last year. So that's the challenge for Gerrard, isn't it, really? Is getting, and for FPL, for us, is getting the likes of Bailey and Buendia and Ings and Watkins back to this level where, we've got to consider them.
Yeah, and I do like what Gerrard has done. He's come in and said, I'm definitely playing a 4-3-3. Like at the end of Dean Smith's tenure, he was trying to fit these square pegs in round holes, going, I've got these players I've signed, like a Buendia, and I've got to somehow shoehorn him in. And he tried a diamond, and he tried a front two with Watkins and Ings. Well, Gerrard's gone, I'm playing 4-3-3, and if that means Danny Ings or Watkins is on the bench because only one of them is going to be my 9, then so be it. But what that has meant is that midfield 3, whoever's playing holding mid, whether that's Nakamba or Douglas Luiz, joined by a McGinn, but also joined by a Ramsey. We are seeing Ramsey, who is a 4.6 option, as perhaps the best budget midfielder in the game now. He's played 1, 2, 3, 4, the last 5 games, bearing in mind the fixture congestion. He started the last 5 games for Aston Villa, and we've seen him score 1 worldie goal already. And I just wonder at 4.5 if he's actually... he's probably only going to be a bench option for us, but actually the best filler asset, or certainly attacking asset there is, that we might want to go to. Because if Watkins and Ings aren't putting the numbers up, then you've got to look at midfield. Absolutely,
yeah. I think if you're looking for a 4.5 midfielder, I think Ramsey is by far the standout. Otherwise, you're looking at the likes of Bissouma or Sargent, or these other guys who Billy Gilmore was someone that I had. I think we both had him and hasn't done anything, literally nothing. Justify it. I mean, you've got an interesting one, and if we're talking about the second half, of the season, I think there are options that can emerge here. I think you've got Cash and Target as the kind of marauding fullbacks. You've got Cash, who's getting closer to the penalty area, a bit more of a goal threat, but Target's got really good creativity. So I think you could go for either of those two. In midfield, Ramsey, as you mentioned, Buendia as well. I mean, he's got an assist in the last game. He's started the last 3 now, so we're starting to see a bit more consistency from him going forward. And then up front, Watkins, I think, is always going to be a decent option. I think will be disappointed with his return so far. 5 goals. He was approaching 20 goals last season. 14. Well, okay, 14, maybe 20 is a bit optimistic, but 14 goals is still a good return. He
missed a lot of big chances, didn't he?
He did. Hit the post a lot. He was
missed penalties as well.
He did, yeah. And Danny Ings, Danny Ings down to 7-7 now. It's just whether he can stay fit. Don't forget he got 22 goals, 2 seasons ago. So we know kind of what an option he can be. So yeah, I'm optimistic about Villa going forward, but I think given that we've got to rate them for the first half of the season, I think it's been pretty disappointing for the majority of people, isn't it? I think I'd have to give them a D, really. I
was going to say D as well. Yeah, I'm happy with D. I do think I'm with you. Second half of the season, they might be a B. I do think we'll probably go and cover their defence at some point when the fixtures are good. Seeing how Gerrard plays, I think there's value in the fullbacks. He wants them high, but they're also keeping clean sheets. So I do think Matt Cash will become the one we go to. He's more expensive than Target, but looks slightly better.
I agree. He'd be my pick out of the 2 as well. Okay, we've agreed so far. Gianni, look at that.
Yeah, look at us.
Look at us.
Looks like the EFL have postponed
they have.
The Arsenal game tomorrow, which does reduce the chances of a double game week for Liverpool in 22.
It does indeed. Yeah,
which perhaps reduces the chances of a free hit.
It does. Yeah. It's important to keep track of this. It's amazing how like a postponement like that can influence other things that relate to us as FPL people. So I'm surprised they've allowed that to be postponed, but there must be reasons for it. So it's hard to speculate. Okay, Brentford next. So Brentford are a funny team. I'm just going to go straight into the stats that I've got about them so far, because I think we've just seen 2 very different Brentford sides this season. As I'm sure you agree. First half of the season, Gameweek 1 to 10. This is I've got their defensive numbers up, but their attacking numbers are similar too. Defensively, in kind of the first half of the season, so the first quarter of the season, they were 5th on defensive numbers. They were showing up really well on sort of minutes per XG, prevented. The defenders looked like teams to target. A lot of people were going for Raya. You had, Pinnock being a good option. And then Raya got injured. And if you look at the second half of the season, second quarter of the season, the drop-off of Brentford is massive. I mean, they're right down with some of the names like Norwich, Southampton. They're below Newcastle in terms of the amount of shots they've had on target. So they've struggled really lately in the last sort of 10 game weeks defensively. They've struggled attacking as well. Tony hasn't delivered on what we thought he was capable of. It's only really been him and Mbomo that people have considered, and they've both been pretty rubbish. So
yeah, and Mbomo shouldn't have been. Like, Mbomo owners, and I know you were one at some. I've not owned him all season. Can count themselves unlucky, but a combination of luck and just he is a bad finisher, perhaps. But it's funny the two parts of this because this turn in form looks like it has a lot to do with the goalkeeper. But when you look at it, we're talking about shots conceded. This isn't the goal. And Fernandes has come in and hasn't been making howlers. But Raya's injury has coincided with a terrible form of defensive numbers from Brentford. But I think it was perhaps just a case of doesn't have much to do with the goalkeeper. It's perhaps other injuries as well. We've seen a few other defenders out, but also just the honeymoon period being over. The shock value that newly promoted teams can give to the Premier League. We saw it a few years ago with Wigan. We saw it with Hull. By sort of 10 games in, you often know what they're going to do. And before that, you don't. So they're much harder to play against in that first 10 weeks. And we saw the long balls, the big throws, and it was working for them. That opening game against Arsenal, I think they scored 2 or 3 goals from like throw-ins or something. So yeah, it's interesting, but it's not. It's to be expected what's happened, and because of that, you look at Brentford now and you go, "Oh, swerve."
Yeah, I mean, they've been involved in some of the most exciting games that I've seen this season. I mean, okay, the Chelsea-Liverpool game the other day was incredible. But, I mean, the Brentford-Liverpool game was amazing. The Brentford-Chelsea game was amazing. The Brentford-Arsenal game, first day of the season, was brilliant. The Brentford... what was the other one they had?
Brentford-Chelsea was good, and Brentford-Liverpool.
Just any. There was another one I had in my mind. I've forgotten what it is now. And basically, any Brentford game, they were kind of a bit like Leeds of last season. You saw the Brentford on TV, and you thought, I've got to watch this. It's going to be really exciting, and they are. Whereas now, I'm not as excited. They lost fairly comfortably to Brighton. I mean, okay, they could have had some goals in the second half, but a 2-0 loss. I think the win for them against Villa last week was massive, because I think that is what's going to take them above the likes of Norwich and Watford, who just can't seem, Watford had a decent start, but just can't pick up wins. Norwich have been awful, but Brentford, all they need to do is just pick up the odd couple of wins like that, and they're going to be completely fine. And I do wonder if that is on their minds a little bit. You talk about this explosive start. It's like they almost did enough in the first sort of 10 weeks to kind of make them think, well, we don't need to do a lot more now. Like, do we need, we're not going to get sort of top 10 finish anyway, but we've done enough to almost not get relegated unless things go absolutely terribly. I don't know if that's the mentality of it's hard to. I mean, losing Ray was big. I think losing Ray, communication in the box can affect the amount of chances they've got. I think he was big for their build-up play, and his passing was exceptional that Fernandes doesn't have. But yeah, like who said it in the chat? Someone said in the chat that losing one key player kind of made them fall apart, and yeah, it almost kind of did. I expected more. I really did expect more from Tony. Though.
4 goals, 2 assists from Tony.
Yeah.
59 points. He has got more points this season than Jimenez, Danny Ings, Lukaku. He's on the same as Callum Wilson, who's had his moments. He's got more points than Harry Kane, Tony. So whilst we've been disappointed, and as owners it's been frustrating, 4 goals, 2 assists, it's not brilliant numbers.
I think that says more about the other players, though, than it does about Tony's.
It says a lot about our striker options, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you were on him for the right time, though, when he got 2 goals in 2 games in game week 12 and 13, and perhaps you only owned him for a few weeks, you could be very happy with Tony this season.
Yeah, it's just when you watch him, he just doesn't look like he wants to score, which is so different to how I thought. Like looking at him in the Championship, the whole game plan was built around getting the ball to Tony and getting him. He scored a lot of shots very, very close to the goal, for example. Whereas now he's receiving the ball much further away from the penalty
number
area.
10, isn't he?
He's number 10.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And that's similar to what's happened with Jimenez.
He's almost become like the. he's the target man, but also he's become like the donkey for a very good number 9 he's meant to play off him, who he's not actually got. It's a little bit like when you used to watch, I don't know, Emil Heskey and Michael Owen. Heskey was there to hold the ball up and put Owen in. If Tony looks like he's meant to be playing with this elite number 9 that he doesn't have in Mbomo or whoever. So it's an interesting one because I don't feel like they're getting the best out of him, but maybe he's sacrificing himself for the team. Maybe the team are actually, it's believed that he needs to play that role for the team to do better, but for his own individual growth, it's not working. He should be getting on the end of those balls, not be the one feeding someone to get on the end of them.
Yeah. Nuclearism says, I'm disrespectful for comparing Brentford to Leeds. I mean, from an attacking, entertainment point of view. I'm just saying the kind of games you watch from Brentford earlier in the season, you would look forward to them, wouldn't you? You'd think, Brentford are playing anyone, I'm going to watch that game. And that was the same with Leeds. Whereas Leeds now, I kind of feel like, I'm not entirely sure I want to watch that. And that's how I feel about Brentford.
They're also getting results. They are 12th in the table, 23 points. They've just beaten Aston Villa. No one saw that coming.
No.
They are finding ways to win football matches, even if their FPL options aren't attractive.
Absolutely. Yeah. If I was going to grade them from a Premier League perspective, you'd have to put them you'd probably put them at a B+ or an A, wouldn't you? But
yeah, they've probably done enough in this first half of the season on 23 points. They've probably done enough to be pretty to say safely they're probably going to survive.
There's no way they're going down. Not with the likes of Newcastle, Burnley, Watford, Norwich. Yeah. There's other teams I think that could get dragged into it. Not them.
Yeah.
I think what they do need is they need a better player to play off Tony. And that's what you were kind of saying. If Tony is going to adopt that role and drop deeper, they need to get in someone who can score goals, because Mbomo can't do it. If we can see. I mean, I do wish he'd scored all the goals that he'd hit the post with. He'd been about 15 goals this season. Okay, grade FPL wise.
Oh, I'm going to go C, because I do think Tony, if you add him at the right times, and I actually did. I only had him for a few weeks. I got lucky. Then you've had something there, and I do think that some of their 4.5 defenders have done well. The likes of Pinnock. So yeah, I'm gonna go C. I think it's a C-.
Yeah, C- was going to be my grade as well. I think defensively, I wouldn't trust them, and haven't really trusted them all season. Although their numbers were good, they're a bit like Palace, so we can talk about in a sec. They just concede. Yeah. They do concede sort of fairly regularly. And then I've had the double up. I've had Tony and Mbomo for quite large parts of this season when they had good fixtures and got absolutely no returns from them. So. Yeah, maybe I'll give him a D+. Yeah, I'm going to go down one, D+ again. That's quite a personal grade, that is, because I hated that. Right, let's come to my team next then. My team, Brighton. We're having a good season. Where are we in the league? About 7th or something, are we?
Yeah, 9th, but it's tight. 9th. You're point behind Wolves in 8th.
Yeah, I mean, we were in the top 4 for a bit. That was fun. Then we didn't win for 12 games. It's been a pretty funny season as a Brighton fan. I mean, it's been similar in a lot of ways to previous seasons. We've played well, created lots of chances, not scored goals, but we've picked up more points, and we've got a better squad. And I have no fear of relegation this season, which is good. I mean, there was quite a lot of drama when I think we lost a match or drew a match. No, we drew with Newcastle, and the fans were booing, and Potter came out and spoke up against it. A lot of fans have turned against Mopé, myself included, and he's kind of reacted to that, and Potter's reacted to that as well. So the fans haven't been entirely happy, and then a lot of people have said, "Oh, you're getting above yourselves" and all this. I do understand the frustration as a Brighton fan at times. I know it's very easy to look at the league table and think Brighton are 9th, but it is very, very stressful week on week seeing your team play well and just not convert chances. The amount of points we've dropped just because we haven't had a decent finisher in the box is stressful. It is, and it doesn't matter how well your team's doing. You want your team to finish off good moves and easy chances, and that's where the frustration stems from. But yeah, I'm very biased. What have you made of Brighton this season?
I think they've been very good, but from an FPL perspective, I've thought this before with Brighton. I never know who's going to get you points. If you're writing off the number 9, if you're writing off Maupay, let's say he's not performing, and to be fair, he currently is, then you just don't know. Outside of Mopé, are there midfielders, are there other forwards that are going to get you points in that team? And I've always loved Trossard. The guy gets in the Belgium team, for God's sake. Okay, he's not in the Belgium starting 11, but he usually comes on as a sub. He's in their top 15. gets in the Belgian squad, he has to be really good. And we see him for Brighton pulling the strings, doing really well. But he's never been a reliable FPL asset until as triple captained him last year, of course. But this season
wasn't triple. Was
it not triple? It was a double game week, wasn't it?
No, it was a blank game week against Newcastle.
Oh, was it blank? Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has got his 4 goals this season, which isn't bad. And Mopé's got 7 goals in like 21 games. So Mopé's on a goal every 3 games, which isn't bad at all. But you look at the team and think, your number 9 at Brighton should be getting that goal return because they produce a ton of chances. You have 2 flying wing backs usually that will feed you. You have creative midfielders like Trossard and McAllister. I think Moda's played well in fits and starts. Lallana can create. The number 9 should be getting goals in that team. And they are short of an excellent number 9 that will take them to the next level, perhaps. But for some reason this season, we've not invested in Brighton defence. Like, it doesn't seem like any of their defenders have been highly owned. Yet, they're good. They will keep cleanos. Lamptey will get attacking returns when he's fit, but Cucurella's been their best performer, 65 points, 5.1 million. He's been getting quite a few assists, and I think we've probably been looking past them, doing them a bit of a disservice.
Good.
Maybe because we've had Sanchez.
Good segue, Gianni, because I've got some Brighton stats on here. I think when we're talking about Brighton this season, I think we're obviously looking at the defenders. I completely agree about Trossard. He's an absolutely fantastic player. I mean, he's had 2 double-digit hauls this season and a 9-pointer. But if you look at his history, the amount of 2s he gets, I think just make him a non-option. And he's 6'1". When you look at someone like Saka, I just think he's going to be more reliable, going to outscore him. I really struggle to see. I mean, Trossard's been playing up front for a lot out of position, but still hasn't really made it into the kind of FPL category where we're really considering him. So, yeah, he has been a bit disappointing. But Brighton defensively, I mean, in terms of big chances conceded this season, Brighton are 4th. So we've conceded it's Man City first, and then it's Spurs.
Wow.
And then it's Palace, and then it's Brighton. So interesting to see Spurs so high. But then you look at Palace and Brighton. So we don't concede big chances.
Yeah. Basically,
that's how well the defence is kind of set up. We still concede goals, but we don't concede these kind of big chances. And it's frustrating that our defence isn't really this kind of elite thing that we're all considering.
Yep.
But I do think Lamptey now, I've been saying it for ages, as soon as he's back, and we had to get through the Christmas period because that was too much from playing, every game. He played a lot, to be fair, a lot more than I thought he was going to do. But he was getting
hooked a lot at 65, 70, which rightly so.
He did play back-to-back 90 minutes, but that's because there's some games were postponed. The rest of the time he's playing 65, he's coming off for 29 and all that. But now, going forward, I think we're going to start seeing the best of him. And it's a good run for Brighton straight away. Chelsea, Leicester, and then a blank, but then Watford, Burnley, Villa, Newcastle. This is a good time to start investing in Brighton, I think. And Lamptey and Cucurella are definitely the standouts, with Lamptey being my preferred one. He's getting forward even more than he did last season. He's touching the penalty area up. Cucurella's doing okay, but isn't really threatening that much, whereas Lamptey is drifting inside a lot more.
I've seen Lamptey playing as a right back in a 4, a right wing back and a 5, and I've also seen Brighton playing a 4 and Lamptey not in that 4 and him in the midfield or the front 3. Like, I've seen him play in a variety of attacking positions in the last 2 months. Cucurella will only play left back or left wing back. So yeah, Lamptey for me is just he'll be a gift if he gets a run of games.
Absolutely. Yep. In terms of goals conceded though, Brighton, I mean we've conceded 20 goals. Best is City with 13. Spurs have conceded 20. Palace, who are 3rd on this list with big chances, they're doing really well in that regard, have conceded 30 goals, so 10 more than Brighton. Liverpool are on 18. I think, is that Chelsea on 18 as well? Wolves are doing amazingly well on 14. So Brighton, in terms of the goals we've conceded, it's been very, very few. And these are cheap kind of defenders for a team that I think a lot of people expected to be battling relegation again. So all the signs point to good defensive numbers. Someone like Lamptey coming into the fold. I'm getting him in my team going forward. Yeah. I think he's a better option than Sanchez as well. Someone said I'm cheating on the grade, so I'm going to go first this time. I'll give Brighton a grade. In terms of overall, I'd give them, I'd give them an A. I think in terms of Premier League performances and position in the table particularly. In terms of FPL wise, coming till now, I mean, I owned Sanchez at the start of the season. I haven't had anyone else. Oh, I had Mope, and he was absolutely terrible. There isn't anyone. I think I'd have to give him a D+, because they just haven't got many points, any of them, or given us many options to consider. But I think that could change in the second half.
Yeah, I'd go C. Sanchez was the template keeper. From all the 4.5 keepers this season, only Ramsdale has outperformed him in terms of numbers, points. He's achieved 67 points. Martinez at 5.5, 68 points. So there's not much in it. So because of Sanchez, I'm going to go for a C. Also, I think we have probably, at times, we probably should have had a Brighton defender when they were 4.5. You know, Dunk was always a bit more expensive, but Duffy did well for a certain time when he was a 4.0. So I'll go C because of that back line.
Nice. Okay, moving over to Burnley. I think this might be a fairly short segment. My apologies to Burnley fans. It's a difficult season for Burnley, right down in the bottom, in the thick of it. Not a huge amount of investment from the owners. Again, Dyche signing a new contract, kind of working with what he's got. We've seen options from them before. You know, we've seen the likes of Chris Wood going absolutely bananas in the last week and the last few weeks of last season. Got a hat trick, and then he is scoring like every week. We've had options in defence from them. You know, Pope standing out, and even in midfield. You know, McNeil's been an option before. Andy talks about him on his stream, for example. This year, I mean, it's Cornet, isn't it? Really, he's been the best player they've had. I mean, he's been scoring absolutely outrageous goals for them. And
he's not going to be at Burnley next season, is he?
I mean, if you care about expected goal involvement and XG and all this stuff, I mean, he's like right down the bottom of the list, but performing well for them. Can you see any options from Burnley emerging?
I can't, and I'm disappointed that Cornet has scored 6 goals and he's still not played 90 minutes. Sean Dyche keeps subbing him off, or even against Leeds at the weekend, he brought him on at half-time. You're just about to go to the AFCON, you're in a must-win game against Leeds, and you bench your best player that you're not going to have for the next month. If he's fit enough to come on for 45, he was fit enough to start, and he came on and scored that free kick. So I'm really disappointed that Cornet, maybe there's something there with his attitude that Dyche doesn't like. But the fact he's not played 90 and he's their best player, yeah, it's a disgrace. The percentage owned by Burnley players, Brownhill is the highest owned player in that Burnley squad at 2.5% owned. That's how poor they've been for FPL this season.
I mean, he was a huge bandwagon, wasn't he? At the start of the season?
He scored 2 in pre-season. One was a penalty.
He's that amazing pre-season bandwagon that we get every year where someone scores and everyone goes, oh, this guy, he's going to be like number 10. He's going to be banging him in 4 or 5. But he's been really disappointing. I think, you know, as well, I think you're looking at defence, and I've got some defensive numbers from Burnley here. They're interesting, Burnley. I mean, you look at their stats and defensive numbers, and they're not too bad. In terms of like shots on target, they're actually really good. 79 shots on target puts them about 6th, I think, or 7th on the list. So they're in keeping with the likes of like Brighton, Wolves. But then you look at the amount of shots they concede in general, and it's so much higher. I mean, Brighton are at 233, Burnley at 289. Below them. I mean, Brentford have conceded more shots on target, but far fewer shots in general. So Burnley are allowing teams to shoot more against them and sort of hoping that, you know, their goalkeeper can save them, but it hasn't been working because they've been letting in too many goals. Do you think that's because like Pope just isn't performing up to the standards that we've seen him do before?
Yeah, maybe he's got them out of a lot of trouble in the past. But I do remember from years gone by talking about how Burnley do concede a lot of shots, but often not big chances. And because of that, we all used to beeline for Nick Pope because he was getting the save points, often having to make saves from 30-yard shots. Well, this season, he's clearly not saving them. Maybe there's a slight increase. Maybe they're shooting that extra 5-10 yards closer to the goal, which is meaning more shots, more goals. But there was a time we could always back Burnley at Turf Moor for a clean sheet. That's not a thing anymore.
I think what you've said is absolutely spot on. What we loved about Pope was that he used to do lots of sideways passes, which puts him right up in the bonus points for hitting those pass completions. He'd make loads of saves, which is what we're seeing from Ramsdale this season, because Arsenal were basically doing what Burnley did a few seasons ago, allowing sort of shots, but from far away. You know, Ramsdale makes the most elaborate save that he can humanly make, and everyone kind of talks about it. That is what Pope did. That's why Pope was such a good option. Yeah. But he's letting them in. He's letting him in. I just don't think Pope is, I haven't considered him once this season. He's 5.4 still on the game. I think he's going to struggle getting into the England side, for example, whereas he's been knocking on the door. His performance levels, I just don't think have been up to it, which is a real shame, I think. And I think Burnley are going to have a real battle on their hands this year for to avoid relegation.
Yeah, agreed. I think they'll go down.
Yeah, they could well do. Okay, FPL grade. You can go first this time.
Oh, shocking. Are we going for... I'm going to say that they're going to probably have been the weakest in the league, therefore a U.
Yeah, I think Norwich are probably will rival them.
I did have Gilmore, and I know a few have had Pookie, so for that reason, I think Norwich might be slightly better.
I can't think of anything good to say about Burnley assets, really. I mean, even just one more thing on this table I've got here. I mean, even headed chances conceded. Whenever I think about Burnley, and I think it's a misconception about Burnley in general, is that they're good in the air and that they don't concede many chances. They've got one of the worst numbers for headed chances conceded in the league. They're awful from set plays and from crosses coming in. So, if you've got players that, centre-backs playing against them, or if you've got strong strikers,
they've got a chance.
Calvert-Lewin, they've got a very good chance against them.
Yeah.
I mean, giving them a U. Yeah.
It seems harsh because Cornet was good. Cornet, I've just looked at, between game week 9 and 12, Cornet scored 4 in 4. So if you were on Cornet for those 4 in 4, you'd be... But other than that, there has literally been 0.
I'll give him an F. I'll give him an F. I think U is reserved for me for Norwich because I just don't think there's anything there. Even Pookie's been dropped at a time we're talking about them. But yeah, I'll give him an F. Only because of Cornet though. I think without him, God, if they didn't have him, they'd be done and dusted. I think by now. Yeah. Medjad says every season they've managed to survive somehow. They do. Surely that luck's going to run. It's not okay. Luck's a bit harsh, but you would think without investment that's going to come to an end at some point.
They survive with a bit of a buffer as well. It's not that we don't often go into the final day of the season going Burnley could go down. That doesn't happen. So they survive and then some. But this season it is going to be tight. They either survive by the last game week or two, or they go down. But it's gonna be a very fine line there.
I mean, they have survived in the past with 1-0 wins and tight games. Do you know how many 1-0 wins they've had this year?
1.
0.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's move off Burnley. Let's go to your team then. Since you're going to be a bit biased here, like I was with Brighton. Moving over to Chelsea. Funny things going on at Chelsea at the moment. Obviously, really strong start. Everyone tipping you to be title winners, or at least, being right up there against the likes of City and Liverpool. Dropped off a lot now. Problems with Lukaku, injuries, COVID. Tuchel saying you're not in the race at the moment. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're not, and we probably weren't even before that Liverpool game. City are just head and shoulders. But what that Liverpool game showed me is even without Lukaku and without Reece James and without Chilwell, that Chelsea team can turn up in a big game and outplay a Europe-leading team. Like Liverpool won the Champions League 2 years ago. They've won the league recently. They're an elite team with 2 of the league's best players. Any team that has salary in. And we outplayed them. Like Liverpool looked all right, and they scored 2 goals from Chelsea errors, but Chelsea deserved to win that game, in my opinion. They certainly deserve to be playing against 10 men for 90 minutes because that Mane elbow, how that didn't happen. And if he's sent off, it's a very different game. We probably don't get that amazing football match, but we probably do get a Chelsea win. So, yeah, I think we look fairly good for the second half of the season. And I think FPL interest with Chelsea is always there because of the fullbacks. Reece James was unbelievable at the start of the season. For those that were too late getting on him and have only had blanks, shame on you for not getting on him early because he was that good. Early on when he was shooting on sight, he was one to jump on. Alonso's been good in recent weeks, strangely. Terrible on the pitch, good for FPL. And then you look at the midfield and there was Havertz's gate, but Mason Mount, I think, is the 6th best performing midfielder in the game, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th best performing mid in the game. Now, bearing in mind, all of our points have been coming from midfield this season. Mount, again, I think he's around 20% owned. He's put up good numbers. So, yeah, I think we've had some good options at Chelsea. But as always, the back line's been the one.
Yeah. I think Chelsea have frustrated me a little bit in the sense that I love Pulisic and Ziyech so much. I think there's so much potential for those two, and the formation that you play and it just means that they're just not options for us really. The stats I've got on Chelsea I just looked at basically all the players that Chelsea have got, and these are all the players that have played like sort of a significant amount of minutes. I mean, there's so many. I mean, you Barkley, Mount, Ziyech, Lukaku, Pulisic, Werner's, they're Hudson-Odoi, Jorginho with his penalties, Reece James, Havertz, Kovacic, Chilwell. They're all kind of options in their own right, but almost none of the non-defenders are options because of how much it kind of rotates. I think a lot of people are excited about Lukaku, and obviously he got that injury, and there's now sort of question marks about what's going to happen with his attitude when he's going to come back in the team. You've got an awful run now. You've got 2 blanks and some red fixtures against City, and obviously just played Liverpool. So investment in Chelsea is going to be really, really low for the short term, but long term, I think Lukaku is going to come back into our thinking. We are going to see Reece James coming back in sort of 5 weeks. Left back, Alonso, Dean coming in possibly.
We might have Luca Dean, who will definitely be, if we sign a left back, it's signing them to replace Alonso. Alonso will be the second string, the third string when Chilwell is fit. He'll probably leave. So whoever comes in, whether that's Luca Dean or maybe someone better that we don't know about yet, I would love Theo Hernandez at Milan. He's one of my favourite players. But yeah, there will be points there because Chelsea wing-backs are given license. And what I love about Thomas Tuchel and this system, he doesn't call it a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. He calls it a front 5 and a back 5. And in that front 5, our 2 wing-backs are included in that. And for that reason, I just think Chelsea wing-backs, whoever they are, will always be good FPL options, considerably better than most teams. Other than maybe Cancelo and Trent, your Chelsea wing-backs, whoever they are, even when they're Alonso and he's rubbish, they're options because they will just be given license.
Do you think it's interesting here that this is... So the table I've got on the screen is all matches so far this season. Bottom of the list for expected goal involvement per minute is Alonso.
Surprised at that.
So he's below the likes of Kovacic, Loftus-Cheek. Jorginho's a bit funny because he's obviously got the penalties that you've got to take into account. But like Hudson-Odoi, for example, I thought Alonso would be right near the top of this list.
Yeah, and he's been picking up bonus points in recent weeks because he's been creating chances. I can only think that he just had a really sort of timid start in terms of shots, but I don't think he did. I think he started the season quite well. So I'm really taken aback by that stat, if I'm honest. But yeah, the data doesn't lie. So there we go. But maybe that just goes. These other Chelsea fringe squad players like your Hudson-Odois and your Ziyech's and your Werners, when they do come on, they're actually a team that just do create a huge amount.
Yeah, I mean, his expected goal involvement is sort of okay, 3.23. That's obviously much better than the likes of Loftus-Cheek, even someone like Chilwell, 1.57. So, you could argue that he's not creating them regularly, but the ones he does create are quite good chances, or he has like good opportunities, or fairly good opportunities at least. But I would, just because it's Alonso, I'd expect that to be far higher. I mean, his touch in the penalty areas is really high. At 35, that's in keeping with a lot of the midfielders and strikers around him. Mount, though, Mount, you mentioned him briefly. He's looking at these numbers. It's amazing that he isn't in more teams, really, because his chances created is the highest, 29. Shots in the box, 25. That's the highest of all players this season. Touching the penalty area, 76 is by far the highest. He had the amazing match against Norwich, where he got 20 plus points. I tipped him early. I tipped him at the start of the season to really kick on from last year. Having Lukaku in the team particularly as well, I thought would help him. There's a lot of rotation around him, but he seems to have that spot. I think he's the one to watch for the second half.
I'm with you, and I think he's only not really highly owned. Well, 20% is still high because the start of the season was pretty poor. He wasn't fit. He needed a rest after a very busy sort of year and a half of football, which included the Euros. And I just think that he was in and out of the team and not looking sharp. But when I don't know what we got to, I don't know, game week 6, 7, 8, he started to turn it on. And yeah, his recent numbers have been brilliant. And he is the one that's absolutely nailed in that front 3. And he's still cheap. Someone like Kelly Summers has got on him really early. And she's been getting so many points. And in her mini league, she's like, no one else has got him. Like, I'm just absolutely laughing here. He's become a differential, and he really shouldn't be when you're getting those numbers at that price.
Yep, absolutely. Just comment from Zach Farnell, just saying not so useful sorting by minutes but XGI. I very much disagree. I think when you've got a team like Chelsea, you've got lots of rotation options. What you're trying to do is you're trying to work out if this player gets nailed on or becomes an option, who are the best ones to get, and that's what happened with Martinelli. Right, because you looked at tables like this and numbers like this, and you thought, oh my god, his minutes per XGI are really, really high. When he plays, he's a really good FP option. The only problem is the minutes.
Yeah.
And it just means if you create a table like this over on Scout and you look at players and you see, okay, Ziyech is really high on this list. If Ziyech nails down a spot in that team due to injuries or whatever, I think he's the one to get. So I really like minutes per XG. I think it's the most useful one. Obviously, if the minutes are really low, if you're looking at players with like 100, 200 minutes or something like that, it's much less kind of useful. But these players, okay, they're getting rotated a lot, but they've all got 600 minutes. It's enough time for us to be able to make some kind of assessment on them. Right. Grade.
As just quickly, the only thing to consider with that is if you've got players that only ever come off the bench when a game is open or they're chasing a game and they're throwing the kitchen sink, then that can skew the numbers. So, for example, Ross Barkley, yes, the stat can be good, but actually we know he'll never start, therefore we discard it. But as long as you know they're going to start, it's great data. To
be fair, I should have discarded Barkley. He's only had 100 and something minutes. I really have made these tables too small. Sorry if you're trying to watch these on the YouTube. Grade. I've got to give him fairly high. I mean, Reece James has been absolutely incredible for me. Rudiger's been great for people. Chilwell, Alonso, Mount. I want to see Lukaku. Even Jorginho. I know. I think I'll give him just a solid B. I think I want when you've got a 95 million striker, you want him to be someone that you're going to as soon as he's fit, really. And we haven't had that from him.
Yeah.
So it's a B from me, and I want to see Pulisic and Ziyech become options. I don't think they will, but I'd like to see it. So yeah, just a B for me.
I'm going to go for an A minus. I was always going to go A, wasn't I? A something, but it would be an A plus or even an A if we had more reliable attacking options. If there was a Lukaku and a Havertz that were absolutely nailed, getting points, it's an A plus straight away. Because what we've had from the defence has been brilliant this season, and the likes of Mount and Jorginho too. So for me, it's got to be in the A category, but a minus.
Excellent. Right, if you're enjoying this video, please give us a like on the thing. Make sure you subscribe on the thing. That's not very... Andy wouldn't say that, on the thing. Give us a like on YouTube if you're listening. If you're listening on audio, don't worry about it. But if you want to catch us live on YouTube, then you're more than welcome to come over. We post on Twitter when we're going to be doing these. But yeah, like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Much appreciated. Right, Palace next. I think Palace is going to be a fairly short one, and we are overrunning a little bit. I think the one player I really want to talk about is Gallagher, really, at 5.1. Again, you're going to be happy that we're mentioning him. On the screen is kind of expected goal involvement of all players. And, Gallagher being on this list in the kind of like the top 20 players, I think, is really impressive. He's just below Vardy, for example. He's ahead of Zaha, who I think a lot of people thought was the go-to option for Palace this year. Yeah. I mean, Palace have been great, first of all, just to say. Again, another team that I wrote off. I had them in my predicted table. I had them bottom, just because of the big rebuild. Yeah. Vieira coming in, not really proven, but massively wrong about that. And Gallagher's just been absolutely superb, hasn't he?
He's been amazing. And this Palace team is a team that wants to attack. And we looked at that Palace team and thought, yeah, it's Roy Hodgson. They park the bus. They're defensive. But maybe there's just limitations in the personnel, which is why Roy Hodgson does this. No. It was strictly Roy Hodgson. There was attacking talent that weren't given the chance. And even Benteke under Vieira looks like a different player to Benteke under Hodgson. So, yeah, Gallagher is thriving. And Palace are a team that can play seriously good football, and definitely one to watch for the second half of the season. Now Vieira's had 6 months in charge, and the likes of Eze and Elise are hopefully going to be sort of fit to feature more. I think we're going to see a really fiery Palace that will score loads of goals. I do think they'll probably concede, but they'll definitely score loads. If they are, your boy Gallagher's going to be involved.
Yep, absolutely. I think he's been the kind of the best budget option that we've had. I mean, he started at 5.5, for example, 91 points. I mean, that's the same as Reece James. Okay, Reece James also 5.5 when he started as well. So, there's comparisons to be made there. But he plays for Chelsea, and this is a Palace striker. So, I think, James and Gallagher for me have been unbelievable value this season. I haven't owned Gallagher.
Yeah. No, I've not. I've not had him once.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah.
No, because I think a lot of people were going towards either Gray or Gallagher,
Yeah.
and I think
Okay.
Gray's stock is now kind of on the wane, whereas I think Gallagher is just going to carry on doing well. So if you've got him at 5.5, you're going to be laughing. Whereas James has now got this injury, for example, and was kind of shedding owners and not really performing as we kind of wanted him to. So yeah, fair play to Gallagher owners if you got him.
I've not had Gallagher, not had Gray, and not had Mbumo. All the sort of 5.5s that people have
Never had
the
Mbumo.
bandwagon. Never had all three of them. Yeah, and I don't know. For me, I was just put off by the clubs they play for. I don't know. If I'm not sold by the club, then I just go, oh, I'll take the 4.5 option for bench fodder, or the 6 option. I don't know, Jared Bowen, where you're sold into the club. But I just felt like with Gallagher, I was like, oh, it's still Palace. These points, he's just getting, the balls just dropping to him. And then the more I watched him, I was like, no, I really should. It wasn't that. He's actually a very good player. Yeah. And actually, Palace are a team that will score loads of goals. But I think I was just put off at first because I was like, just thinking of Roy Hodgson's Palace, the team I tipped to be in the relegation battle this season.
Yeah, and I think we do see Gallagher's role in the side change a little bit. Sometimes he does drop deeper. I think a lot of people say, when Milivojevic plays, for example, that's when Gallagher massively comes back. I think it was more Milivojevic. And we you see some blanks from him, but when you've got him at 5.5 and then he's hitting a double-digit haul every three weeks, it doesn't really matter. So a great option. Palace going forward, can you see like the likes of, I don't know, the defensive numbers have been good for Palace, but I think the lack of attacking threat from them kind of rules them all out. What about in attack? Like you've got Benteke, Edouard potentially. He was someone that I really wanted Brighton to sign and hasn't. His minutes have been a bit all over the place, but 2 starts and 2 goals and 2 assists in his last 2.
Yeah, coinciding the last time out with Zaha suspended, and he played on the left of a 3, and he played in the Zaha role, and he got his 11 or 12 points, whoever he got in FPL. I just think he wants to be the number 9. Does Vieira want to play a big number 9 in Benteke or Mateta? Certainly in some games, depending on opposition, maybe away from home against bigger teams, he definitely does. And that means Edouard has to settle for a place on the bench when Zaha is fit, when Eze will be fit, when Elise is fit. So with all those to consider, I just think Edouard is still going to suffer heavily from rotation in this team at this moment. I personally think he should be in and go to a team like Brighton. You'll probably get 20 goals and start every game. One to monitor. I just want to know who's in that first choice 11. And at the moment, we've not seen Palace attackers all fit. We might start seeing that in Jan or Feb. So when we do, we'll get a sense for who's in that sort of first choice front 4.
Yeah, I think Klaus nails it in the chat. Probably with Edouard is he keeps rotating with Benteke. Maybe the second half of the season will be different. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for the kind of potential options to emerge. I think if Edouard does nail down that 9 role and we see more, 290 minutes is encouraging going into this. I think he could be an option, but at the moment I wouldn't go there. Grades for Palace, FPL wise, as I said, Gallagher's probably the only one really. I think that's enough to put him.
I'm probably go C+ because they are so reliant on Gallagher. Although maybe that's harsh because Gallagher's been so good, but we can't have one man propping up the team too much. So I'm going to go C+.
C for me, I think pretty much. I mean, if you've owned Benteke, you've got him cheap and you got a couple of goals out of him, you'd be disgraced. I mean, if you had him against Burnley, for example, he got 2 goals, you'd be saying, oh no, he's been amazing. But yeah, I think it's Gallagher no one. It's a C. It's a shame about the defence because the numbers are so good, but they don't seem to keep many clean sheets.
Not when you expect them to. And that's the problem with Guaita owners. The Guaita owners jumped on him at the right time, but he didn't keep clean sheets even though the fixtures were good.
Yep, absolutely. 3 more teams, Gianni, you good? We're going to have on an hour.
Yeah.
You good? Cool. Right, next. Oh, God. One of the biggest fails of the season has to be Everton. I mean, I know they've had injury problems. I know they didn't invest much in the summer. I know that Benitez came in under a big cloud. But they've just been awful.
Yeah.
And the performance against Brighton summed it up. They at home, at Goodison, Calvert-Lewin back in the side. Dreadful.
Their fixture ticker at the start of the season, I think, was perhaps the best. And for that reason, loads of managers went towards Everton assets. And I remember quite a few teams had double Everton. And Dean was popular, DCL, of course, Damari Gray. And I remember sending a tweet saying, what's everyone doing? Like, this is Rafa Benitez at Everton. It's got disaster written all over it. Also, I think he's a shocking manager. Ask Real Madrid, Inter, and Napoli fans about that.
You said it at the start of the season as well.
Yeah, but I felt like a mug as because
I think we argued, didn't we? I think I said he wasn't a rubbish manager, and you said he was.
Yeah, and 3 weeks into the season, I looked like I was wrong. Like I'm sure maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Everton started the season all right, and they were scoring some goals, and people were jumping on bandwagons like Gray and DCL, and I wasn't on them and thinking, oh, okay, I might have to eat my words here. I might have to go back and delete that tweet from a month ago. But
you'd definitely do that as well, would you?
Do you know what? I don't think I've ever deleted a tweet. I don't do deleting tweets, but yeah. So yeah, I was happy to see them start losing games, and when we saw Watford go and score 5 goals at Goodison Park, I just thought, I think maybe Josh King got a hat-trick. I just remember thinking, yeah, that's the Everton I expected. And since then, they've just been absolutely dreadful. Dean should be one of their best players, and Rafa's frozen him out.
Oh, I tell you, I know. Dean's always been, he's always looked, sorry to interrupt, I was just going to say, Dean's always, to me, looked like someone who probably does have a big ego, right? But he's the best player in that team. Yeah. He's actually, like, on his day, a world-class player, and they have
gets in the France squad.
Oh, he's absolutely brilliant, and it almost strikes me of like a bit of a Mourinho type thing that we've seen him do in the past. When these big managers come in and they almost like pick a big name player just to say, right, you're going to be my scapegoat for everything that's going on. You can't do that at Everton. You haven't got the quality around you to alienate your best player like that. And I don't care what you've got to do to get him on side. A good manager gets Dean on side, I think, in this situation.
Yeah, you make it work. And then he went and, yes, he had injuries, and Richarlison and DCL out, combined with Decore, it's not great at Townsend. But then you go and buy Rondon and think that's going to be a solution. Like, it's never going to be a solution. I don't even know if he ended up scoring in his run of games that he got. The back, you're like, okay, why is Godfrey playing left back? He's probably your best centre back without Mina. And instead, Michael Keane and Holgate are there. Dreadful. All over the place. I'm not surprised to see them losing games. And even with these fixtures and even with this double game week, I didn't want a part. I don't think I've owned an Everton player all season. No. In fact, I haven't. And even for this double game week, Damari Gray, DCL, I didn't go there because of Rafa. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 15th in the league, -9 goal difference. They're almost in a relegation battle, and a couple of more bad results. I mean, they've got a really, really good run of fixtures. If they pick up a couple of losses over these good fixtures, they've got the same points as Leeds, for example. They could imagine Everton getting dragged into a relegation battle where, and they've been a team that they want to be in the top 6, but the investment wasn't there. Benitez had a very, very hard job. The squad isn't a very good squad. I don't think there's no depth to it really.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone could have done a worse job. That's my honest opinion, and I said it in a group chat the other day. I would find it hard to know who would be doing a worse job than he's doing at Everton at the moment, given they're 15th in the league with 19 points.
If they hadn't have started the season so well they'd be in desperate trouble. I think they started the season with a win over Southampton, a draw with Leeds, a win over Brighton, and a win over Burnley. So they won 4 and drew 1 of their first 4. They don't put that run of 3, 6, 9, 10 points together in the first 4 games. They're in deep trouble.
It's such a risky appointment as well with Benitez. It's just gone completely wrong, and I don't know. Yeah. I just don't know how he can turn it around. I mean, actually, I do know how he can turn it around, and this brings you to my one thing I've got on Everton, which is Calvert-Lewin. And this is Calvert-Lewin last year, and I just looked at kind of expected goal involvement of all the players last season. I mean, he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's 7th on the list out of all players last season, and Bamford on there is amazing, but we know what a great season he had. But it's Salah, Fernandes, Kane, Vardy, Bamford, fair enough, Mane, Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah.
They need this Calvert-Lewin back, don't they? That's the most important thing.
So reliant on him, and it's dangerous when you are reliant on one player, and we've seen it with Leeds, with Bamford, and we've seen it with Everton. That player gets injured, and then they've got no plan B, and you need a plan B. It's the Premier League. You can't put that much reliance on one or a particular striker. You need a backup, and these guys that Leeds didn't have it, and Everton don't.
Yep, completely agree. Okay, grade. I mean, Gray, you can't argue that Gray and Townsend did do well for people in kind of the first quarter of the season. I mean, Calvert-Lewin even got 3 goals in his first 3 games as well. I mean, everyone else has been rubbish. I'm going to give him a C- just for Gray and Townsend. I think if you owned Gray at the start of the season, you got a good 6 or 7 weeks out of him.
Yeah,
Which
you
is
really
probably
did.
enough for a pass. But yeah, C-.
I'm just looking at Gray's points. It wasn't an unbelievable start to the season. No one saw that coming. So I'm with you. I want to go D-, but it's not because Gray's, and to an extent Townsend. So
And
I'm going to.
Decore. I mean, Decore was not. These guys
Yeah,
were at
true.
least options for us, weren't they? That's the thing.
Yeah, so it's got to be a C just because of that early season form for me.
Yeah. I mean, Gray was 5.5 and started with 2, 9, 8, 7, 2, 6. I mean, it was kind of all you wanted, really.
Yeah.
Decore 8, 4, 3, 10, 2, 11. These were pretty good. I mean, Townsend got 3 double digits in 4 weeks at one point.
Yeah, yeah, fair play. Yeah, they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Leeds. I've got something that might surprise you on Leeds. Very disappointing, though. It feels like the first half of the alphabet has been mostly disappointment. I mean, Leeds are similar to Everton, so many injury problems. Bamford losing out, I think, has just been way bigger than... I mean, I wasn't expecting him to be in for this long, and it's affected them so much because they just haven't got anyone that can replace him. And Tyler Roberts is... I don't want to be harsh. I don't like saying these kinds of things, but I just don't think he's good enough, even slightly, for the Premier League.
He's a championship player, 100%.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I mean, Dan James is very inconsistent, was at United. Rafinha's obviously the standout. That's it. It's Raf or no one, isn't it?
I feel sorry for Raf every time I watch Leeds play now. It looks like, when you used to play, I don't know, football as a kid, and whether you're in the park or playing for a team, and there was that one older kid that was just sort of so much better than everyone else. And you could see, yes, they liked scoring goals and getting assists and being the best player, but at the same time, you watched them and they would just, you looked and thought, you can see they just want everyone else to be on their wavelength, and that's so not. Well, I see the same with Leeds, and because of that, I actually don't think we're getting the best out of Raf, and we're seeing his performances dip a bit because he's just like, no one else can do this, and he's slumping a little bit, and I can see it in his body language. Even though I think he's probably got to play for a move now and a bigger contract elsewhere. But yeah, it's so reliant on Rafinha, it's dangerous.
Yeah, I think it is very harsh to be nasty about Leeds because I mean they've had Cooper, Llorente, Phillips, Bamford, Rodrigo, and then loads of their like second choice players. Like Strouk's been injured, Shackleton hasn't played, Rodrigo has been injured. Like they're playing with like a third choice team almost and saying it, but. I talked about them entertaining. I don't like watching Leeds at the moment. I feel bad for them. Like I feel bad for Bielsa and seeing his reaction after the Burnley game when he's hugging his assistant coaches and how much it means to him. You can't deny his passion, his love for the club. But
they've got a soft centre, haven't they? But that game against Burnley,
understatement, I think.
Yeah, like the game against Burnley. When Leeds play rubbish football teams, they out-football them and they win the game usually quite comfortably when they're playing really bad football teams. And Burnley are amongst the worst football teams in the league. So everyone expected a Leeds win, but Burnley still, after all of those Leeds chances, Burnley still got it back to 1-1 at the hour mark. That's how soft their centre is. It took a corner free kick, goal, and before you know, all that good work was nearly undone by a terrible footballing team in Burnley. That's how soft their centre is. And I question if it's naivety on Bielsa's part when they go up against the big teams and they still are adamant they have to play the same way.
Yeah.
And they therefore concede 5 goals to United or Arsenal or Chelsea or whoever. I spoke to Seb about this. You guys know from Scoutcast, big Leeds fan. He watches their games twice over. His day job is around Leeds United. And he says, but if we don't play that way against the big teams, then we won't know how to play that way all the time, even against the rubbish teams. That is our only way. And that means that we do beat the rubbish teams convincingly. Now, that's fine. And he's right. They often do. But if they're going to have a soft centre and allow Burnley in at 1-1 at 60 minutes gone, then we've got an issue and you start thinking about relegation candidates. So it's a fine line. They have been hindered so much by those injuries you mentioned them as. The centre-backs, like Robin Koch, a German international. Llorente's a Spanish international. These guys are barely fit. Cooper, club captain's always out. Phillips is a huge loss, as big as Bamford. So yeah, it's been unfortunate, but Bielsa wants a small squad.
Yeah, and that's the way it plays. I mean, it's hard to be too critical of them because I think given the injuries and the squad they have, they should be much lower down in the table.
Yeah.
I think if you look at their squad generally speaking, in terms of the injuries they've got, so excluding the likes of Bamford and Phillips and these kind of top players, their squad's as bad as Norwich.
It is.
I think the majority of games they've played, they've been working with a squad worse than some of the bottom 2 or 3 teams in the league. So the fact they're 6 points off relegation spot, I think they'd take that at this point. Hopefully, they can get some of these players back and kick on in the second half. The stat I've got about Leeds, I just want to show you this. So this I found quite interesting. So this was Leeds last season. This is that their attacking numbers. So minutes per chance, they're having a minutes per chance every 6.9 minutes, which was 4th best in the league last season. Only bettered by Liverpool, Man City and Chelsea.
Yeah.
Very impressive, right? This season, all the injuries they've got, no Bamford, problems across the whole squad, right down the bottom of the league, no one talking about them really in terms of FPL options. Well, it's exactly the same.
What?
6.9 minutes per chance puts them 5th in the league, below Liverpool, City, Chelsea and Arsenal. So is it just purely about conversion? Then is it because they haven't got Bamford there to put these chances in? I mean, he got them, 20 goals last season. Taking out a 20-goal striker from a team like Leeds is obviously going to have huge implications. I'm just amazed that they're creating chances just as regularly as they were last season, given all the problems they've had.
Is an amazing stat, isn't it? And I guess that where a lot of teams lose out in those numbers is they play the big teams and they create absolutely nothing. So you take all that data and think 80% of it is when they play the bottom 10 teams. Well, for Leeds, they create just as many chances against the good teams as they do the bad teams. So because of that, you're taking all of their games, not 50% of their games. So I guess it's very surprising for me. But then when I think about it and go, no, because when they play Chelsea or when they play Liverpool, they have a real go and they often score. So, yeah, fair play. It's Bielsa's ball and he only has one way of playing, quite clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, rating-wise, Rafinha's been brilliant for me.
Has he? Did you have him when he scored those penalties recently? Wow.
I did. Yeah. I mean, I doubted his ability to be a consistent FPL option, and he's more than made up for it in such a injury-stricken side. But like I said, he's the only one. I mean, even Meslier, for example, has been poor. The amount of saves he made last season, for example, and hasn't done it this year. It's hard to. It's similar to Palace, isn't it? Really. I guess we've got to give them a similar grade because there's only one option.
In terms of ownership, Rafinha's on 15%. The second highest in the whole squad is Dallas at 3.4%. So no one's going near any of their assets other than Rafinha.
I think I'm going to give them a C. That seems a bit optimistic. I'm going to give them a D.
Yeah,
I think C's a bit harsh.
Yeah, I'm with you. D, and that's only because of Raf.
D. I'll give him a D plus because I owned Raf. How's that for
I sold him at the wrong time. I think I sold him when the vast majority did, but you obviously kept him, so you got the big goal run.
It's hard not to be influenced by him. I mean, it's for the second half of the season. I do think Raf is going to be an option for us again.
Yeah, and he's playing for that move in the summer. He wants a big club to come in for him. Bayern, Liverpool. He'll go, and if he steps it up again, he plays for Brazil now.
Does absolutely.
He's gone from the Championship to Brazil in like 6 months, or in 12 months. Fair play.
Yeah. Okay, final team. It should be Leicester, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, but I can't spell, so it's Liverpool. Instead, I mean, where do you start with Liverpool? I mean, I think me and you could talk about them, for another hour if we wanted to. I mean, they've attack-wise absolutely incredible. I'm just going to get my table up. Out of the top 10 most points this season, they've got 4, which is Salah, Trent, Jota and Mane. So nearly half of the top scorers all come from one team out of 20, which is very impressive. City have got 3, to be fair, which is Cancelo, Silva and Diaz, right up there as well. Only Mount from Chelsea. But, I mean, 4 players from Liverpool. Salah, obviously, I don't think we even need to talk about how incredible he's been and what a great captain option he's been. Trent as well, just so consistent again. There was worries about him last season, thinking that he might be losing it a bit, lost his place in the England side, but more than made up for it this year. And then Jota, 7.5 million for Jota. He should hit. I reckon he'll hit 200 points this season. Yeah. Incredible value. And then you've got Mane, who I think FPL overpriced. I think if they'd bought him in at, 10-5, 11, I think we'd see him in a lot more teams.
Absolutely.
He's not going to pay 12 for him, are you?
Jota shouldn't be more than Jota and Mane should be the same price. Now, even for what they've done in years gone by, knowing Jota's playing as the number 9 and they're both listed as midfielders, they should be the same price. But they're not. And they won't be for a long time because the way the price system works, we're not going to see Jota at 11 million next season as a forward. He'll go up, but it'll be 9. Liverpool, you look at the highest owned defender in the game, Liverpool, Trent. Highest owned midfielder in the game, Salah. Second highest owned midfielder in the game, also Liverpool in Jota. So for that, they've just been brilliant, haven't they? We have all had triple Liverpool for a very long time. And when it wasn't Jota, it was Tsimikas at the start of the season. And again, that worked out nicely as well. So yeah, Liverpool have been a gift. If we could have had 4 Liverpool at times, we would have had. That's how good they've been.
Yep, absolutely. In terms of rating, it's got to be the highest mark, isn't it? We've had a triple up on Liverpool all season, Salah captain every week. They couldn't be doing more. With options in defence, midfield, no striker. Obviously, Firmino isn't really an option. Imagine if they got like Aguero or not now, obviously, but if they had like an Aguero and they had Salah, Mane, 2 midfield options, and then this striker as well. They're an easy team to grade, I think, just because.
I really wish there was 4 incredible FPL assets at all one time to give us that dilemma, because it actually, we don't pick a squad of 15 or a starting 11 anymore. We're picking a starting 7, because Trent, Jota and Salah, 8, are just an absolute given. They're just a given.
I think the probably the only disappointment really this year has been Robertson.
Yeah.
Because he is someone who I think last season particularly was rivaling Trent. And if you went with Robertson over Trent early on, you got more points from him. You saw him taking corners and playing much better and much more advanced. Whereas this season, it does look like he's regressed a bit. But I do wonder, with AFCON coming, with people taking Salah out, shifting funds around, whether we're going to see investment in the ball. They've got a great run coming up.
They have. And without Mane in front of him, maybe Robbo's even more, responsibility to attack, depending on who plays on the left, if they're cutting inside more than Mane would. Robbo was priced at 7 million though, still it's a huge amount of money for Liverpool's second choice defender in FPL. Trent was 7.5, sure. But again, a bit like the Salah and Mane, I want a bigger price gap between them. Ideally, there's 1 million between them, and then you're in the kind of, where do I go? Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
So for me, they're an A+, easiest decision I'll make.
A+ easy. I just want to check a table I had on the Leeds, because I think I might have put the wrong one in. Oh no, I didn't. No, that's perfect. I was doubting the 6.9 minutes per chance. I thought maybe I'd just copy the same table over twice, but no, I haven't. I'm better than that. Come on, I don't know the alphabet, but other than that, it's fine. Gianni, awesome. Really enjoyed this stream. Hour 15. Hopefully you can join me again tomorrow. We'll do. Second half, I'll do this same format, I think. Just one little snippet from each team, and the grades and our choices. But yeah, it's been really fun.
Thank you, mate. Good to chat, and look forward to tuning in tomorrow for the second part, where I get to have a nice little ramble on United.
Oh, that's gonna be a hell of a segment, isn't it? We've got some big teams coming in the second half. Spurs, for example, United, City, they'll be all in there. It should be a good one.
Yeah, West Ham as well.
West Ham, absolutely. Right. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Just one final plug. If you have enjoyed this, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel as well. Also, if you've liked the stats and the tables, all of this stuff has come from Fantasy Football Scout. So if you head over to there, sign up, be a premium member. You can create your own stats tables, all of this stuff. It's an amazing resource. I was in such a rabbit hole working on this stream. I was originally just going to do photos, like just pictures and get us to talk. And then I started doing the tables, and you just get so much interesting stats coming out and comparisons and all that. So yeah, it's well worth doing that.
It's great for me, because I need someone to spoon feed me stats, because I really like stats, but I've got no inclination to find them myself. So I need to watch videos like this to get them. So thank you, Az. You're spoon feeding me all the nice golden nuggets.
You're my target audience, Gianni. It's absolutely fine. Right. Thanks everyone, and we will see you soon.